Let's sing a song full of hope, full of pain. Why don't you sing along, my friend? For it's our last refrain. Forever young, ever strong, ever brave. Memories like this never end. No, they don't fade away. So when I'm gone, oh, when I'm gone, I'll be right there, close to the sun. Keep holding on, keep holding on. And I'll be right there, close to the sun, close to the sun. Close to the sun. Here's to the ones who let shine through the rain, the ones who stood for something more. We won't forget your names. The tide is high, say goodbye, we're setting sail, and all those midnight secrets told, we'll take them to the grave. So when I'm gone, oh, when I'm gone, I'll be right there, close to the sun. Keep holding on, and I'll be right there, close to the sun, close to the sun. Close to the sun. So when I'm gone, oh, when I'm gone, I'll be right there, close to the sun. Keep holding on, and I'll be right there, close to the sun, close to the sun.
All right, everybody, how are we doing today? We are officially 1 week away from Christmas. Let me double check that. I'm pretty sure we're 1 week away from Christmas. Yes, we are. Welcome, everyone, to the Icey Lair podcast. I am your host, your Ice Dragon, Rayron VR. Welcome, everyone. So, we've got a lot to talk about. Let me go ahead and get everything set up here. Why is this not working? Let's see here. Oh, well. My Discord is not wanting to cooperate, apparently. Huh. Okay. Oh, well. Anywho, welcome, everyone. We've got a lot to talk about. So, Spiderman. Spiderman. So, there are going to be a lot of spoilers for this movie. So, if you don't want to get spoiled, feel free to watch this on VOD at a future date when you guys go see it, because I highly recommend go see it. It is a great movie. It actually made me cry a little bit because it was 100% a nostalgia fest. And that's all I'll say for non-spoilers. So with that, guys, we're going to go into spoilers. I got the spoiler tags up here. I'll even flash the spoilers. So yes, we're going into spoilers. So with that being said, it is a great movie at a cost. So what do I mean by that? So one of my favorite characters in the MCU is Doctor Strange. Now, what I mean by at a cost, so I'm going to have to define this. So you need to pay attention to, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. So when I was watching the movie with the end credits kind of caught my surprise a lot. Because when the end credits were going, there was some mentions of Disney, but it was heavily on the Sony studio side. A lot of Sony logos were in the end credits. So it makes me wonder, it makes me believe who really had creative control. I suspect, and this is just a theory, I don't really have like solid evidence or facts on where to take this, but I honestly believe that Sony had, I would even argue to say, 90% creative control over this movie. Because when you look at the villains, a lot of the villains came from, actually all the villains came from the Sony movies versus the MCU. We didn't get like, Mysterio especially wasn't in this. It's interesting that we didn't get any MCU universe villains in this. So, with all the villains being Sony, and again, spoiler alert, we do get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in this movie, which is fantastic. This is what I wanted. That's what everyone wanted. But we got that at a really big cost to that, and that is with Doctor Strange. So Doctor Strange, I think it's undeniable at this point, he was acting 100% out of character. I don't believe that he should have casted that spell. Now, I'm going to go a little bit more meta into my thoughts of why Doctor Strange got destroyed in this movie. So, and it all comes down to what I said just recently. Who had creative control over this movie? Was it Disney or was it Sony? And I think it was strongly towards Sony. There were some Disney isms, bad jokes, cringe moments, forced dialogue in here, but I think Sony had at least 90% creative control over this movie, and Disney about 10%. What's interesting about this, again, this is 100% theory, this is just my thoughts. I think that Sony played Disney really fucking well. So, what I think Sony is doing is brilliant, because they know that Disney is in this woke phase right now. Let's take a look at what they're doing to all of their male characters. Look at Hawkeye. Look at Loki. Look at Falcon. They're dehumanizing these male roles and switching them with female roles. We can look at the Eternals. It's, they want this diversity. They're so big on this woke aspect. So I think Sony pitched the perfect idea to Disney. I think this movie is a little bit of a love letter, or at least an apology letter to the fans from Sony themselves. Because what I saw in this movie was villains getting repaired, conclusions from not only Tobey Maguire's era, but conclusions from Andrew Garfield's era as well. The fact that Sony created these villains to have a redemption arc, all of them. It's crazy. We had Sandman, we had, was it Electrode? And the fact that the MCU Spiderman, Tom Holland, he wanted to give these villains a second chance. Now, there's debate over that, if that's moral or correct. I'm not going to get into the argument. I want to focus more on the meta argument, that how Doctor Strange was ruined. If you guys want a much more in-detail analysis on the story itself, again, I'm going to EFAP, because they had a stream going on today, in fact, that at the time of this recording, that was going much more in detail with that, and you'll get much more knowledge based out of that. But for the sake of what I want to talk about, it's about Doctor Strange, and that's what hurt me the most about this movie, is that Doctor Strange's character got destroyed. Which makes sense, because, again, you gotta think about it. Who owns Spider-Man? Sony. Who owns Doctor Strange? Disney. It is the MO of all Disney-owned characters to start going down this terrible trend that we're starting to see. And it's like, no, don't do it to Doctor Strange. And so Sony looks at Disney, it's like, hey, you're doing this woke things with your characters. Can we borrow Doctor Strange so we can have a plot point? So that way we can have our love letter to the fans? Because how else are you going to be able to get the multiverse opened? to my knowledge, I mean, again, it's very limited. I don't think there's a villain out there in the MC universe that can break the universe or be as powerful to have a spell that wipes minds. If there was, then feel free to correct me. And then I would argue that I wish they used that villain in place of Doctor Strange. But I think Sony had the perfect setup. They were able to use Doctor Strange as the antagonist. I know there's a lot of debate saying that the Green Goblin was the antagonist because, he didn't want to go good. I mean, it's argued that Electro didn't want to go good either because he wanted to keep the power, and it was kind of proven. But again, I would define those villains as a derivative villain. Why were they put there in the first place? It's because Doctor Strange opened the door, which is completely out of character to what we interpretate as the character from, the MCU presentation currently / maybe the comics. Again, I'm not going to go into debate of the interpretation of Doctor Strange. That's a video for another day. But it fits Disney's narrative. And Sony played it perfectly. Sony played Disney perfectly. Because Disney would get what they want, which is breaking down the strong male character. And then Sony will get the perfect catalyst to get their derivative villains into this universe to get the love letter back to fans. Again, that's all what I see through my eyes. So, originally I thought that they were going to break down both Peter Parker and Doctor Strange. That's where I was wrong. 100% wrong. I thought they were going to break down those characters because I was always in the interpretation that Disney was going to be the full creative control of this movie. But if Disney was in full creative control of this movie, they would have also, in my opinion, considering all of the other things that they've done, Peter Parker would not have the hero's journey that he did in this movie. And that's why I suspect, again, I have no evidence, I'm just based on the movie that I saw, Sony played Disney. And it's interesting because as I think about the creative control of these, I mean, sure, Kevin Feige was also credited in this movie, don't get me wrong. Disney still has their hands in this movie. But now we got to start asking ourselves the question, from these 3 movies, what did the deal look like behind the scenes of creative control? When you think of it from that perspective, it's actually interesting because we had, Far From Home, No Way Home, and Homecoming. So Homecoming, I would argue that Disney had about 90% creative control. Again, up for debate. No Way Home, it looked like it was pretty much 50-50 creative control. And then this one definitely felt like Sony had 90% creative control. So it's interesting between the 3 movies, the deal of that creative control that they had over it. Again, I'll have to probably do a lot more research into like who was directing it, the editors of the movies. I would have to do a whole bunch more that, I may dive into a little bit more because I think there is some sort of hypothesis here with that. So I may or may not dig more into it. I just want to get my thoughts out there initially. And considering that I saw it this morning, I kind of just want to talk about it since it's kind of fresh in my mind. Because I have a memory of a goldfish, so I just want to spew it all out there essentially. So, but it's interesting. It is really, really interesting. As far as Peter Parker and the characters in the story, besides Doctor Strange, I think I've beaten that dead horse. Peter Parker has the full... let me rephrase. Tom Holland's Peter Parker has the full hero's journey that we want. Because originally he's just a boy that, he feels immature. It's perceived that he is immature. At least that's the way I would say it. He's young. He's not matured enough to really have the role. He always needs help from other other Avengers to help him be a hero. But this one, it's nice to see that the result of Tom Holland's Peter Parker had consequences, and that's another distinction between, you know, a Disney hero versus the Sony hero. So we had a scene in here where the Green Goblin, again, spoilers if you're still hearing that, then that's on you. But Green Goblin kills Aunt May in the MCU Aunt May. And that's where we see Peter Parker start to mature. Again, it's the standard trope. And then we get the famous nostalgia line of, you know, great power comes great responsibility. Well, it's not at that scene, but Aunt May gives that statement to Peter Parker a little bit earlier. But it was very symbolic, you know, to the Uncle Ben dying. And it was nice to see. You can tell that, okay, this is real. The actions that I do are real, have real life consequences. And it's like, by the end of it, you know, there's a lot of jokes that say that, oh, Tom Holland's number 1, you know, Tobey Maguire's number 2, and Andrew Garfield's number 3. I chuckled at that, but it's like, oh, come on. There's the Disney-isms a little bit. But it was quite a journey to see. That is the proper hero's journey that I want to see. That a hero is not immortal or a Mary Sue. That's what I want to see. And I got it out of this movie, but like I said, it comes at a cost. So we get the epic fights between the Sony villains versus the 3 Spider-Mans. And it was fun to see. It was really fun to see. It was quite a third act. The first act was kind of trying to fix, and this is where I think creative control is also interesting, because when you look at the acts of this movie, it feels like Sony was trying to rush the first act to fix Disney's hand in it, and then the second and third scenes felt. I can't really describe felt because it's a very subjective phrase. Just from experience, from the music, from the hero's journey that we experienced in the third act, it felt a very Sony movie. Because, you know, we've seen those before. Granted, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 weren't that great, but it felt like Sony was learning their lesson from those. And there's a lot of plot details that there's a couple issues. So when you use multiverses and timelines, you got to make sure you have 100% dedicated rules for it. Because if you don't, then there could potentially be so many plot holes. And it gets to the point that it gets so technical that you're going to lose the general audience. And that definitely is a huge problem in this one. But towards the end of the movie, we got our Spider-Man back. I think if you're a fan of the MCU Spider-Man, if you're a fan of the comics, if you're a fan of Andrew Garfield, and even a fan of Tobey Maguire, they did them all justice. It was quite a letter that Sony wrote, I think, back to the fans. And I'm hoping that they do. I hope the future movies are going to be good. Hopefully they learn a lesson from Andrew Garfield. Spider-Man. But we'll see. Only time can tell. So by the end of it, all of our heroes have basically been freed. Because if you think about it, the Green Goblin, it was a serum that was causing him to go mad. Another voice with the Green Goblin. Doc Ock had the issue with the chip. That's why the Orange was able to control his mind. We've got Sandman, Electrode, Lizard Man. All of them get their, how do I describe it? Their humanness, their humane back. They become human again. Hello, Avery. How you doing? Did you watch the? Have you watched No Way Home? I don't want to spoil it for you. Curious on your thoughts if you've seen it. So I'm knee deep in spoilers. Knee deep. But it's very interesting. And yeah, and that's the good thing. That's the great thing about this movie is that if you're a fan of a certain Spider-Man, I think, again, this is me generalizing here. I think each one of the Spider-Mans, okay, cool. Each one of the Spider-Mans got redeemed in their own specific ways. And I think they brought closure. Because I love Tobey Maguire as well. And I felt like that brought closure. Like this was... And when I tweeted this out, I felt like I may have spoiled it a little bit because I put Spider-Man 4 No Way Home. And I think that kind of spoiled it for a few people. So if that was the case, I'm sorry. Because I was implying that Tobey Maguire was actually in this movie. But I feel like that's common knowledge now. But I really, really enjoyed it. It was the first time I felt like being in a movie theater. Like, I actually enjoyed it. The only thing I really needed was my father to be with me. Really wish I could have watched it with him. That's oof. Yeah. But by the end of it, so all the villains are redeemed, and then they go back to... Well, let me back up a little bit. So we had Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, MCU. He finally did the mature thing. He tells Strange, we see the multiverse is breaking. And then Tom Holland basically said, let's finish the spell. That gave me so much trust. That in the writing, again, there's a lot of little writing. There are writing issues with this movie. Don't get me wrong, but within that moment, the writing was spot on the way it needed to be. Because that's what I want my heroes to do. Again, a little biased. And that's how I remember Spider-Man, being mysterious. No one knows exactly that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So, just thinking about it. And then they complete the spell, and then everyone forgets that Peter Parker is... Spider-Man. And again, there's a lot of plot holes with the whole spell. Again, I'm not going to get into too much into the weeds. Because again, if you want the weeds, go to EFAP. They're brilliant when it comes to the small details. I'm looking at more at the meta level. The bigger level. The production business aspect of it. And that Doctor Strange got screwed over by Disney. Which makes me mad. But... So all the villains go back. Our 3 Spider-Man, they go back to the Spectre world. And then just to put the cherry on top, and this is where I think Sony, again, I feel like this is a love letter to fans or an apology letter. I'll probably have to say apology letter a little bit more because of how it ended. So, Tom Holland, MCU Spider-Man, sees I said Michelle Jade? Anyway, MJ. For MCU's MJ. I'm terrible with names. Peter Parker is able to go find MJ. And he's got the opportunity to say, hey, I'm Spider-Man. And it's like, I felt it in the audience that I was watching the movie. Because it was packed. Oh my goodness, it was packed. And it's like, everyone was saying, don't say it. Don't say it. I can hear people whispering, don't say it. And he doesn't. He doesn't say it exactly the way a Peter Parker should be. And he goes back to he finds himself an apartment. And then he's going to he's going to let time take its course and see if it actually works naturally. And that was the most beautiful thing, because that actually showed me that Sony is self-aware. Not only are they self-aware of what came before, but it's self-aware to the source material of what Spider-Man is. And it was nice to see that for once. And that's why, like I said, that's why my hypothesis that I think Sony had 90% creative control over this movie. Because I just don't see majority Disney creative control be doing this. In fact, they got what they wanted, whether we like it or not. Sony used the wokeness of Disney to use Doctor Strange as an apology letter to get everyone back into the universe, into a movie. Because I just don't think Sony could have done that any other way. And I think Disney fell right into the trap. Or, excuse me, Sony. Because Sony is building their own universe. There's no doubt about it now. The first ending credits, we've got Venom. So Venom was in it, and a piece of it was left behind. Now, I didn't know this because I had so many questions when I saw that scene, because I thought Venom was going to be in the... let me phrase this correctly, because the multiverse is crazy. So I originally thought that Venom was already in the MCU universe. So when Venom was phased out of the MCU universe, that threw me for a freaking loop. Because I had originally thought that they were going to incorporate him just on a side in the same universe. But when the spell was undone and we saw Venom phase out, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. He's actually in a different universe? WTF? And then a piece of Venom was laid behind. Now, I have a question about that. But that was actually solved apparently in Venom 2, which I didn't see Venom 2, so that's why I was so confused, because apparently the end credits of Venom 2, again, spoilers for Venom 2 end credit scenes. Apparently, Venom is a multi-dimensional creature that knows what's going on in the multi-dimensions. That's why they knew about Peter Parker and Spider-Man here. I hate that they do that, but it is what it is. So that actually explained that plot hole that I was wondering what is going on with Venom. Fine. Sure. Multi-dimensional creature. Got it. I believe button on that one. And so the other and probably the most damning evidence that Disney got what they wanted was the very end credits past all the Sony, very Sony heavy credit scene. I said there was a few little mention of Disney, but it was heavily Sony. Like the Sony logo popped up and so forth. That's where my biggest evidence comes from that Sony had like 90% creative control of this movie. Is the end scene. It felt like another trailer. This was probably the longest end credits I've seen. It was basically a trailer for Multiverse of Madness. I think I'm saying that right. But what really disappointed me was that Doctor Strange needed to ask help from none other than the Scarlet Witch. Gee. Guess what other tropes are consistent with Disney? That is the damning evidence that Doctor Strange will not be Doctor Strange, the main character in that Multiverse of Madness. It's going to be Scarlet Witch. Disney got what they wanted. They were okay with this. Which is sad. And that's why this movie came at a cost. And it's frustrating to know that. Because there was no other way Sony can get the other three Spider-Mans together. Or even get the Spider-Verse together. They needed something. A catalyst. a mechanism, a plot device. And the best one to do it is none other than the sorcerer that can break it. Doctor Strange. So we lost Doctor Strange in order to get all 3 Spider-Man, and that pisses me off to no end. That's why the more I think about it, the more conflicted I get with it. Because it's great that we got nostalgia. Again, member berries, but it's member berries done right. Because I originally thought they were going to disrespect the characters, with all the jokes. If it's one thing I did not like about this movie is that way too many jokes. Way too many cringe scenes. Like, I will never get the 2 Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, doing the backstretching scene. Like, Sony, no shipping, no, enough. Disney tried that, it failed. You're giving us too much love with that scene. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, oof. That's all I gotta say to that. But it was so nice to see. I mean, I was happy to see Andrew Garfield because, I'm not a fan of Andrew Garfield. Never did like 1 and 2. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I would definitely agree with the. Yeah, this is not even working. Hang on. I want to give this. Where's my copy? One of these days I'll be a professional streamer, but that's not gonna happen. It's not a rare on stream without issues. Chat highlights. One of these days we'll have this all squared away. There we go. I was laughing my ass off, but I was cringing on the inside so much. So much. Freaking Sony. But if it's the biggest thing I hate about... There's a couple things that bother me about this. The jokes, the Scooby-Doo scene was as cringe as bad as I thought it was from the trailer. It was bad. Just bad. There were some other jokes in there. I was like, ugh. Just enough with the Guardians of the Galaxy type of humor. I'm kind of over it. Disney won't stop it. I know that's that 10% of Disney sneaking in there with the creative control. But my goodness. Just enough. Enough with the jokes. Let's have a little bit of seriousness with this. I may. Okay, so there is another thing that I'm concerned about with this movie. Great that all of the villains got redemption arcs. Great that, we can have potentially another Andrew Garfield movie or potentially another Tobey Maguire movie if Sony chooses to go down that rabbit hole. But again, I'm not concerned because Sony owns Spider-Man. I'm just curious what they're going to do with those characters in the future. Because we've kind of been bait and switched a couple times. But again, that's more Disney, not Sony. So I think the fact that Sony owns all those characters, I think they're in good hands. I think thanks to this movie, thank God that Sony freaking owns the Spider-Man license to the movies. And I hope they never, ever, ever sell it. I don't think they will, considering this movie's going to make $1 billion. There is no doubt in my mind. My theater was super packed. Like, the whole trope of, it's empty theaters because of the virus. People don't want to go because of the virus. Yada, yada. That's bullshit. I saw it with my own eyes. That theater was packed for the first showing at 10 a.m. this morning in a relatively smaller size city of California. That place was packed. And when I left that morning theater, or morning showing, the line was just ridiculous. I haven't seen lines like that probably since like Endgame, I want to say. It was crazy. It was crazy to be in a packed theater again in California. where everyone was having their masks down and eating and enjoying the movie. I felt normal again for the first time in almost 2 years. In 2 years. But again, I always have to go back to that caveat that it came at a cost. And I think if you guys like this movie, there's no hope in hell for any future MCU movies owned by Disney. Like, I am deeply, deeply concerned for the next Doctor Strange movie. Like, I don't want to see it because of the end trailer that I've seen. Yeah, fair enough. It was packed for you too. And Odin, OMB Reviews, said that it's breaking records. Like, I think it had a 50 million opening night. I think it's on pace to make 200 to 300 million after this week. And then once word of mouth finally gets out there that Toby and Andrew Garfield are in this movie, it's gonna make $1 billion. So the excuse of COVID is out the window. And get this, everyone says that, oh, it's a Disney movie. Sure, you can think it's a Disney movie, but I'm going to ask the question. Sure, it could be advertised that it was a Disney movie. But when you ask yourself, who was really in creative control of this movie? Because I would beg to argue that Sony was. Sony got exactly what they wanted. They used Disney's wokeness to get what they want. And they're going to laugh themselves all the way to the bank. I would even argue to say that whoever put Doctor Strange into that role was probably the most brilliant person. Whoever came up with that idea. Because Disney thinks they're getting what they want. Sony definitely gets what they want. But I think long term Disney's going to hurt themselves with Doctor Strange. With the next Doctor Strange movie. Because they already put it out there in daylight. You know, Doctor Strange goes to the house of the Scarlet Witch. And not to mention, that trailer was bashing Doctor Strange. We even got the what if Doctor Strange in that trailer. That whole... Oh my gosh, it makes me even more mad the more I think about it. That trailer is just a swan song of, oh, you're too powerful, it's your fault, man bad. And now a witch, a woman has to come in and fix what you did in this movie. Disney got what they wanted. They're going to ruin Doctor Strange. If they haven't ruined him already. The multiverse of madness is going to be denouncing Doctor Strange. I hope that's an icy take, but there's a lot of evidence to support what I'm saying. We'll see. I was really excited for the multiverse of madness. I wanted Doctor Strange too. But from what I saw from this movie, the end trailer, and just all the other products going out there, I am really concerned. And that's just... Oof. Yeah, and that's actually a great point. Is this going to work? Because I'm being dumb. There we go. I think it's more of a Sony than Disney because it's on Disney. It's not on Disney Plus. That's how you know. And that's another great piece of evidence. I didn't even think about that. That'll be something else to watch. When this movie comes out for DVD release, Blu-ray releases, I wonder how they're going to deal with the streaming rights. If it's going to be... Because Sony, I think, signed a contract with Netflix Hang on. I actually want to look this up because that's going to be a good piece of evidence. Who is Sony streaming with? I'm pretty sure it's Netflix, but I want to double check. Yeah, okay, so yeah. In another sign of Netflix growing dominance, Sony Picture Entertainment has signed a 5-year deal with a streaming giant, exclusive U.S. rights to Sony's films once they leave theaters and premium video on-demand services. That's going to be a huge piece of the puzzle, and especially if my hypothesis is correct. Because if it goes to Netflix instead of Disney Plus, then that just supports the hypothesis even more. That Disney had a lot more creative control. And actually that would even argue that they had the rights to this movie too. Which makes sense because I think the first two... Now I'm curious where the first two are. I have to dig... Again, I have to dig a lot more into this. Because it's interesting. And it's like, it's a point that I haven't been... I would think that that point would have been obvious with everyone. I have to watch Neurotic's video a little bit more through, and same with Heel vs. Babyface, but from what I've been seeing, no one's making this point, which is interesting. Because that was the gleaming thing in my mind. It's like, damn. Sony, you're taking advantage of Disney's wokeness. And it's great. And it's like everyone's saying kumbaya, but I think Disney's going to hurt in the long run. And that's why that was my biggest point about this movie. That's why a good chunk of the stream is going to go to Spider-Man No Way Home, because especially, like I said, with the end credits. The end credits is where it really just was blatantly obvious. A lot of credit went to the Sony studios. And then the more I thought about it, I got to give credit to EFAP, because I was watching their stream prior to doing this one, and you know, they pointed out too that all the villains came from the Sony universe. We didn't get any MCU villains from the universe, which is, you know, another interesting potential evidence of my hypothesis. So it's really interesting. And I just wish I just wish Doctor Strange wasn't used as the plot device needed to break the multiverse. I think there's probably something out there they could have used to help better that. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong in the fact that I could also look at it this way. Maybe I need to look at it from a different hypothesis perspective. So I'm going to present hypothesis number 2. This movie probably wasn't going to get made unless Doctor Strange was put into it from Disney. And maybe, I'll use the benefit of the doubt here, maybe there was some Sony execs and creative producers that didn't want Doctor Strange in this, and maybe they did have someone else lined up for it. But again, Disney insisted that, oh, it should be Doctor Strange doing this, should be Doctor Strange doing this. And they went with it. So I can also look at it from that perspective. Either way, Disney gets what they want. A deconstructed male lead character. To replace it with a female one. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really hope I'm wrong. You know, and when I was thinking through the theater, it's like, you know, that can't be. And then it got to the end credits. And that's when it just reconfirmed everything. So yeah, it's interesting. Really, really interesting. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Avery, what'd you think? Did you enjoy the movie? And how was your perspective on their handling of Tobey Maguire? That's another curious thing. As another person who believes that Tobey Maguire, I think, is definitely the Spider-Man. But, you know, another thing that this movie convinced me is that, okay, Tom Holland is the Spider-Man for this universe. I'm okay with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland being their respective Spider-Man leads for their respective universes, as long as they don't stomp on them and disrespect them in the future. Because, I can point at Star Wars on how they've taken famously loved characters and just treat them like garbage. That was the great thing about this movie too, is that we had life lessons from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. You like that? Nice. And the fact that they use those life lessons to help the struggling Peter Parker was so touching. That's when to be honest, I did shed a tear. But it wasn't when Aunt May died. It was when the friends hugged Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Because that scene was really relatable, especially for me. It probably been relatable for anyone who was watching that scene, that, everything has gone wrong, you feel alone, and then your friends know where you're at to come together. That is a very, I cannot stress how valuable that scene is. And again, that's why I think another just piece of evidence that Sony had majority creative control over this movie, because you technically won't get that in Disney nowadays, because Disney would have promoted MJ. Vartech? I have no idea what that means. Welcome, Harry. How you doing? Harry Glenn. Welcome. But that scene when MJ and I can't remember the other guy's name. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. But when they came together and to console Peter Parker on the school rooftop, and then the other two in the distance, and sharing their experiences of the past, of what came before. That's how you do it. That's how you tell a good story. You pass the torch, and that scene is as textbook of passing a torch as it gets. That's what we want as fans. We want closure, but we want proper closure, and then being able to love the new character, because now a piece of the stuff that we loved in the past is now going through with the new Peter Parker going towards the future. And I think it's all the arguments that this Tom Holland shouldn't be Spider-Man, I think, are finally done. I think it's safe to say that he's finally been through his hero's journey. He's lost Aunt May, for crying out loud. I think he's earned that respect now. But that's the thing. Heroes have to earn that journey to be a hero. And that ending was just spectacular. That ending saved it. Now, like I said, there's a ton of issues. There's some plot holes because you're dealing with time travel, multiverses. I think the biggest issue I had, as far as if I really want to nitpick, the biggest thing I would nitpick is when I can't remember his name. Not MJ, but the other guy's name escapes me. He was using the tool to make the portals, and the fact that he was able to portal into a different dimension without any training or skills to get into the exact same spot at the right timing to get the other two Spider-Mans, that was luck, to say the least. That is the biggest one that was noticeable for me. And of course, there's plenty of others. But it was a good movie. Like I said, good movie at a cost, though. A good movie at a cost. You know, Doctor Strange was heavily affected by this. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my discussion there with Spider-Man No Way Home. So if I were to give an Ice Cube ranking, because I do Ice Cubes, apparently. How many Ice Cubes out of 10 would I give this? It's tough. It's tough because you had the promotion of a really good character. We saw Sony's Spider-Man in the so-called dimension with the MCU get elevated to leaps and bounds. But again, it got destroyed at the cost of the character of Doctor Strange. That's tough for me. That is so tough for me. What would I give this? That is such a great point. Such a great point. Not one of them had one particular ego. None of them were morons. The jokes were freaking, yeah. Jokes were just too much. I'm done with the jokes. And the cringe factor was at a huge... So, the nostalgia memories were there, hands down. And it's like, it's hard to say if they were jangling keys because they actually came to a very good conclusion. That third act was probably the best third act I've seen in a very long time. Like, I think it's even better than Endgame, and I think it's even better than Infinity War when it comes to the third act. That's probably an icy take right there. Very icy take, but I loved it. They respected what came before them. Tobey Maguire felt like Tobey Maguire, and they respected the fact that he was old. Andrew Garfield was the quirky Andrew Garfield from 1 and 2. They didn't overdo it. Sony learned from their mistakes. Disney wouldn't do that. Certainly not Kevin Feige right now with the way he's going down with the MCU. So, what I'm probably going to do, I got to figure out, so it's 10 out of 10. But then I'm going to start deducting based on the things I didn't like. So the jokes, -1. Because the jokes is just too much for this. Now, the fact is, how do I want to subjectively quantify the Doctor Strange being destroyed in order to do the love letter for all 3 Spider-Mans? I'm going to take 2 off. So 7 out of 10. That's 7 out of 10 Ice Cubes is my ranking for this movie. Again, that may be a little harsh, but what they did to Doctor Strange, I know what's coming. I think we all do. And that is my concern, that Disney had a big part in that. So, 7 out of 10. Alrighty. So that is basically all I'm going to talk about. I'm probably not going to talk about anything else. This will probably be the last official opinion I'll have. I don't think I'm going to do a video, but a dedicated video on a topic. I think I need more evidence from the Multiverse of Madness. I think once I see that movie, then I can combine my hypothesis from this movie, and apply it to that movie, and then I can really say, hey, they destroyed Doctor Strange. So, because right now it's just a hypothesis. But, so yeah. So when it comes to Spider-Man No Way Home, I was right about a few things. I was wrong about a few things. But it will always be the movie that is good, but it came at a cost. And that's my final conclusion to this movie. But I highly recommend going and seeing it. It is a good movie. It is a good movie that unfortunately came at a cost. All right, so we're gonna go. Man, that was almost an hour in itself. That's great. So let's go to some good news here. And let's see here. This one. So there's a lot of things going on in space. I'm going to go ahead and I'll kill the spoilers, because now we're out of spoiler territory. And then let's go back to display capture. So there's a lot of news in space this week. This morning, I actually, if you guys aren't following my Twitter, please follow me on Twitter. But I posted a clip of I was actually able to see the SpaceX launch this morning. It was around 4:20 this morning, so it's been a long day. But I was able to see the Falcon 9 launch with their satellites for their link, their net, the internet. I can't remember what they call it, but yeah, I was able to see that this morning, which was awesome. We've got some more space news coming up. We've got the Webb telescope has been packed up on the Ariane 9.5 rocket. That thing's going to launch out of the French New Guinea down in Central America. So originally this was supposed to launch the 22nd, the day after my birthday. I wish it could have gone on the 21st. That would have been awesome. Birthday present. Oh, yeah, new telescopes in space. Anyways, it is now going to go for Christmas Eve launch. That is the 24th. And they will be live streaming that launch, which I cannot wait. I'm really excited for this one because there's just been a lot of unexpected problems that have popped up. Unexpected opening of the telescope. Communications issue, which is why I got delayed from the 22nd to the 24th. But I'm really, really excited. I can't wait for that one to take off. Again, I'm passionate about space. You can thank Sailor Moon on that one. But again, this is just to give you guys some perspective on our universe. The Milky Way galaxy. That's Earth. That's our star, the sun. With Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Oof. This one was pretty cool. So this is a rocket launch seen from space. So you can see there's a little plume of smoke. Getting to the stratosphere. The magnetic field effect from the sun. The separations. You see like the first stage or the second stage igniting. Oh, it's so cool. So SpaceX is about to do their next SpaceX launch. Oh no, Starship launch for orbital test. And this is their booster that's going to go underneath it. And this is all of their nozzles being tested. These are the Raptor engines. And it's just astonishing what we're doing. And oh, by the way, Elon Musk, Time Person of the Year. Super excited for that. I know he's not all there mentally, but when it comes to just tech stuff, man's a freaking genius. Socially awkward, but a genius. And if you haven't seen some of his speeches, yeah, not a great speaker either, but again, he's an engineer. What can I say? So also this week, we had the first man-made object that was able to touch the sun by technical means. So, to my understanding, it was... In fact, let's go ahead and open up this article, and I will read it to you. So, in a first for humanity, a man-made spacecraft has kissed the sun. Okay, kissed, sure. Not only does this milestone provide us with a deeper insights into our sun's evolution and its impacts on our solar system, but everything we learn about our own star also teaches us more about the stars and the rest of the universe. So this was NASA's Parker Solar Probe achieved a scientific first after 3 years and 5 Venus flybys entering the sun's atmosphere. The achievement was announced and press conference of the American yada yada. So why is this? I want to know, where did they? Okay, so it went into the sun's atmosphere. Interesting. So the limited space between the sun's atmosphere and the space is called the Alvin Critical Surface. I did not know that. Prior to the mission, let's call them scientists. Yada yada yada. So in its fly through, the probe discovered two strange solar weather phenomenons. A source of solar wind known as switchbacks, and oh my goodness, the pseudo streamer. Interesting. So this is all brand new, just recently. So switchbacks are streams of charged particles that escapes the sun in a zigzag pattern. Parker's flyby proved that the photosphere or surface of the sun generates those solar winds for the first time, although other regions of the sun can generate them too. And a pseudo-streamer is a name given to huge structures that come forth from the sun. The agency compared to the eye of the storm because these structures are relatively calm compared to the surrounding environments. And this is the actual video that we got. So this is the sun's atmosphere for the very first time. Those pseudo-streamers. That is insane. That is awesome. Yeah, first man-made aircraft to touch the sun's atmosphere. Crazy. Some more Mars Perseverance rover apparently finds some organic chemicals on Mars. Awesome. Oh yeah, so this is that video. I didn't realize I had this saved. Of those new pseudo stream that probe captured. That is the sun's atmosphere for the very first time. 1 million plus degree solar plasma. That is just nuts. Okay, and this is the update about being pushed 24th, which I just talked about. I'm not going to go into Warhammer 40k. Okay, yep. And then good old clips from the South Pole. So, yeah, a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about. But, yeah. That was pretty much it. I knew it was going to be a very strong Spider-Man day because I put out 2 videos about the trailers that I was concerned about. And I just wasn't sure if it was going to be a good movie or not. Luckily, it was. Again, I still highly recommend watching Spider-Man. It's a good movie to get back into theaters to, take a friend, take a date, take family, friends, parents. Grab good old popcorn and a drink, because that's what I did. I really wanted to get back into, fully immersed into the theater. It was a good movie to come back to. And there's no doubt in my mind, I think that's going to be the movie of the year, followed by the runner-up of Ghostbusters. So, kind of a little bit of a spoiler for next week. So, next week. Let's talk about next week. Next week is going to be Christmas Day. I will be streaming this podcast Christmas Day. It is also going to be the last podcast of the year. So, it's kind of a 2-for-1. Next stream I'm extremely excited for, because one thing that I do as a content creator is I want to talk about the best things of the year. It's when I give out my awards, my Icey Awards. So what was the best movie of the year? What was the best music of the year? What was the best manga of the year? I don't know. Who was the best actor? I don't care. We will just list all sorts of random awards to think about, and we'll talk about it. So that's when I'll do my Icey Awards. And then the other thing we got to talk about, man, it's going to be 3 things we got to do. It's going to be the Christmas stream. It's going to be the end of December special. So we got the end of the month December to go through. So the state of ice for December and also for the year. So we got to give our Icey Awards out, because fuck the Oscars. For 2021, as we wrap up that year, because the weekend after that, it's New Year's Day. It'll be the first podcast of 2022 for the Icey Lair. So I'm extremely excited for next week's stream because it's one that I'm really passionate about. I love doing awards. I remember one time we had, just to show you how random it is, it's like I had an award for the best company to work for. Unfortunately, one year, I think it was in 2017, I gave that to Blizzard. That did not age well whatsoever. Because that's when like Overwatch came out. Warlords of Draenor was doing okay. Like Blizzard was popping. And it's like, damn, that must be a great company to work for. That did not age well whatsoever. Oh, man. And I will also do the worst of things. The worst song, the worst movie, so on and so forth. So, I'm excited. The State of Ice for December, and then the award show for 2021 will be next stream on Christmas Day, December 25th, 2021. With that, guys, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for listening in to this episode 9 of the Icey Lair podcast. Apologize for all the technical difficulties, but we'll figure it out eventually. But as always, you can follow all the content that I do on this channel. Down below, I've got all the links. One more announcement I want to make on this particular channel. I'm going to be starting up once a month. Probably the first week of the month is what I'm going to do. We're going to have a manga book club. A couple ways I'm going to do this. What I'll probably do is I'll pick the first one for January. But for February, I'm probably going to do a Twitter poll to see which book we should do next. I'll announce it. And then that way we can all talk about it live. So it'll be a book. Let me see how I'm going to phrase this. The manga book club podcast. I'll come up with an official name. I haven't really thought about it too much, but I want to do a manga live stream. That's been something in the works for a while because I do a lot of manga review on this channel. It's one of my main pillars of this channel. But and then I can bring you guys in. I'll do the stream yards, so I'll just have like a picture of the book and we'll just talk about it for whatever manga we want to do. And I'll probably one rule I'll probably do is that keep it to all volume 1s, because then it gets a lot more complicated. Let's do volume, 30 of, I don't know, Demon Slayer. Well, that means you got to have like 1 through 30 read before we get 32. It can get really complicated. And not a lot of people can afford all those books at one time. So I'll probably do it that way as well. Talk about maybe volume 2, maybe go up to volume 3, but then we'll cut it there. So it just kind of depends. But yeah, I am excited for that next podcast on here. So, yes, Avery, wing hugs. Wing hugs to you as well. Thank you for hanging out. But with that, my lovely Icey family, I'm going to call it a stream. And with that, I'll see you next week for the last one of 2021.
We'll all fade away. Time turns